Alabama LSU this weekend, and are the Tigers a little more banged up than we thought?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey again, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson with the AHSA Radio Network. That's me. Jimmy Stein with Bama Online. That's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, I think. Let me be sure, though. Yes, FanDuel. Of course it is. Why didn't I know that? I should have known that. And we want to thank you everydayers for joining us every day. And you newbies, you are always welcome. So, Jimmy, the injury reports that are a new thing this year, they've come out. And man, it looked like LSU had a lot more dudes on there than I thought. But Alabama's only got two dudes on there. Cole Adams, who we know is out for the year, and Keon Sabb, who is out indefinitely for right now. But I think we can all deal with that because we all love the way Bray Hubbard played. And LSU, though, I mean, they're starting offensive guard. One of them is out. Of course, several guys that we already knew about, like Harold Perkins and things like that. But when you see their list come out like that, it is rather startling.
I think, first of all, I think some different schools obviously approach this differently. Alabama obviously has a different approach. And I think people need to understand what the rules are about these availability reports. Alabama has more than two players that are dinged or hurt or playing through some things. You are not required by the league to list everyone on the team who is going to play but is dinged up. You're just not required to list them. Now, some schools apparently do, because like Ole Miss and LSU, their reports are a lot lengthy every week. I think it's a different philosophy school to school on what's required or what they should do or how they want to approach that. Alabama is basically, looks to me like the approach is, if a player is hurt and is not going to play, he's out. Everyone else is probably going to play. So we're not listing them. And you're not really required to. The only trouble, I'm talking about the only trouble you're ever going to get in over these availability reports, Luke, is if you list someone as out and they play. If you list someone as questionable or probable or doubtful and they play, okay. And they don't, okay. What if, for instance, you don't play, let's just name a player. I'm just picking up a random player here. Q Robinson. Let's say Q Robinson doesn't play and he's not on the injury report. Can the other coach say, hey, what the hell? Q Robinson wasn't on your injury report. He didn't play. All we got to say is, yeah, coach's decision. He had a crappy week of practice. I mean, you're not in trouble for not playing someone. You're only in trouble if you play someone that you say is out. Because even if you say he's doubtful and he plays, you're not in trouble for that.
So, what kind of trouble, by the way?
It's a large fine.
Okay.
Not a fine that approaches, by the way, things like storming the field, but it is a large fine. I think $100,000 for the most egregious violation. I mean, it's up there.
Is it per violation?
Yes.
It is funny, though, because that's the one thing I was going to bring up. I was listening to Dusty and Danny in the morning. I always do on my drive from Birmingham to Ellick City every morning, and they were talking about Ole Miss. They was like, man, this Ole Miss list is extensive, and it is. I mean, it's funny how Alabama's is, okay, you're either out or you might play. Those are the two categories. And Ole Miss's is like probable, but bad case of the blues.
The following players.
Doubtful, bad ouchie.
The following players are wearing Band-Aids.
And Lane Kiffin is just doing it to screw with the system.
I don't know. Yeah, I think everybody's going to have maybe some coaches are like, hey, we're a banged up football team, and I want the fans to know how banged up we are because they judge me kind of harshly. And I want them to know that we're sort of the walking wounded around here. Maybe that's it with some. With others, like you said, Luke, it could be, hey, I hate this, so I'm going to flood you with names because there's no ramification. Again, what I would focus on here is the ramifications, and they're not too significant unless, again, you say a kid is out and he plays.
Well,
So I don't think you're ever going to see that happen. So all else is just fun and games, right?
it does define your level of pettiness, I think.
Good.
Like Lane Kiffin is pettier. And I think that what I would hope is my coach would be like killing the board and like, okay, he's either out or he might play. And I don't need to go through the minutia of probable with a 40% chance of cloudiness. I don't need to do all that. I need to do either out or maybe in. Those are the two categories. And Lane Kiffin is like, I'm going to take a good hour out of my day because I've got time today. I'm going to take a good hour out of my day and just write some different stuff just to screw with the system. And part of me appreciates that, but another part of me is glad it's not my coach. Because I'll tell you something else I heard. And again, this is sort of firsthand, like first and a half hand. Is that a thing? But and this is not necessarily Alabama related to it, kind of is. Apparently, after the Vanderbilt loss, Hugh Freeze had a tee time at an Auburn golf course the next morning. And, my first thought was, okay, I mean, he makes plenty of money, whatever. My second thought was, if my coach had just lost to Vanderbilt and was 3-6 or whatever, and somebody told me, hey, yeah, I know he's got a tee time tomorrow morning, I'd be like, say what now?
Right.
I mean, can you imagine Nick Saban having a tee? If the golf tournament was in Nick Saban's backyard and it was to benefit the Saban Family Foundation and all proceeds go to Nick Saban directly in untaxable, untraceable cash, he would not play in a golf tournament the next morning during the football season.
Two things about that, and it just goes to show important how context is to everything. I think there's things you can say that sound shocking, but there has to be a context. And I know nothing about. I mean, I know what Luke's referring to because I've heard that, but I think context means everything, because I think when I hear, and I think everyone listening to the show, when they hear, hey, a coach played golf on Sunday morning, had a tee time after a loss, I think we immediately picture in our minds 4 guys in a golf group smoking cigars, drinking beers, playing a 4-hour round of golf, followed by 19th hole beers, recounting the thing, and then like, oh man, tomorrow's Monday, we got to go by to the office. That sucks. I think that's what we picture. What if I told you? What if I said that Sunday morning after games, a Nick Saban, this is hypothetical, that Nick Saban would be at North River Yacht Club at 6 a.m., 1 hour before the course opens, and plays 9 holes in a cart by himself because he uses that hour and a half to reflect, have some soul time, some me time before he is at an 8 a.m. or 8:15 staff meeting where he rips everybody's butt for what happened the day before, and he sort of needs some solo meditation time. So I'm not saying Hugh Freeze did one or the other. I'm not saying it, but I think when we hear, it just shows how context is so important. Because I know when I heard the same thing Luke did, my mind goes to, he's out there with his buddies drinking beer and smoking cigars the day after he lost to Vanderbilt. But that doesn't necessarily mean that just because they played golf the day after, because I think we would need to know the context.
We would, and that is true, 100%, except the context that I understand, there was an actual tee time at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, that's different.
That is very different.
That gets back to what I said, context. Context could make them look really bad for that, and context makes, well, that sort of makes sense.
And I can't say that it happened because I wasn't there.
I don't know.
I just know I got it from some various sources that have very good sources. And it just, again, it goes back to the Lane Kiffin thing of, pettiness and how serious you are about some of this. And, are we getting to a point of some of these coaches make so much money? I mean, like Jimbo Fisher, we were talking about all the pressures on Jimbo Fisher. There was no pressure on Jimbo Fisher. He gets $78 million to be fired, to not work. So I think we've got this thing turned around. They've got us by the Short hairs.
One more context, and again, I know nothing, but an additional context that would also make some sense to me is, let's say, for instance, your NIL budget is $10 million a year, and you have one guy that's paying 80% of it. And that guy says, okay, I'll pay 80% of the NIL budget, but you're playing golf with me every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock to talk about the game the day before. Guess what? You're going to be playing golf at 10 in the morning. So that's the system we've created for ourselves here in college football, where coaches are beholden to people who are paying their payroll for their kids. So that's a system that we've created. And I bet this happens virtually everywhere, that coaches are having to change their schedule and change what's important to cater to the people who are paying the players.
We all could have saved a bunch of time and have known this was coming if we had all gotten together at a drive-in theater and watched the movie Blue Chips many years ago.
That's true.
If you hadn't seen Blue Chips, it may be Shaquille O'Neal's finest acting moment.
It's definitely Anthony Hardaway's.
It's that and Kazam.
It's Hardaway's best movie of all time.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Now, you got to win, but pretty easy to do, right? The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game and you need to check out the latest stats or view live play-by-play or so much more, you can do it on the same page where you place your bets. It's that easy. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with 150 smacks in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It's that simple. That's only at FanDuel.com, which is America's #1 sports book. And never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. Okay, so
great NFL game tonight, by the way.
Joe Burrow went off on the Ravens last time, and Derrick Henry has scored a touchdown in every game so far this year. I'm going to say this again. I'm going to continue to say it until it is spoken into existence that everybody believes it. Derrick Henry is one of the best running backs of all time in every single category.
Short list. He's on the short list. If he's not #1, he's on a short list of the greatest backs of all time.
It's so funny to me because here's the thing. You know this is rather funny. And boy, we're going to get to the quarterback talk, but I got to talk Derrick Henry because he is quickly moving up the list of favorite Bammers of all time. But, you think about when you say best college backs, you say Herschel Walker, Darren McFadden, Bo Jackson. I mean, I say Darren McFadden. Some of y'all might not. Probably Reggie Bush and Barry Sanders, I would say. Maybe some people would throw Ron Dane in there. Okay. Except for Barry Sanders, none of those guys had a great NFL career. Now, some of those guys had a nice NFL career. I mean, Reggie Bush played a long time. Herschel Walker played a long time. But, then you think about some of the other ones that were cut short by injuries like Bo Jackson. And I think some of these guys get more credit for like either getting cut short by injury or not having a great NFL career than Derrick Henry, who kicked total butt in high school, kicked total butt in college, and now is he might win the MVP award.
Yeah.
That's insanity.
At a time when the vast majority of running backs who have ever played pro football have gone on the other side of the hill and off the cliff because they hit that age 30 and they say, you can't play running back in the NFL age 30. That's been proven time and time again. So he's doing it at a time he is an exception to a pretty hard rule. I mean, it's mind-boggling. He's just proof, Luke, that some people were literally born or made by the Creator to do what they do. He was born to. It was
He's
like,
a
all right,
myth.
I'm going to make the greatest running back of all time today. Voila, Derrick, you're it.
He's a Greek myth. He's the kind of guy you have to stab him with a golden sword to win the lion's mane or something. You gotta do.
And it's been scandal if you think he's been in the spotlight since high school because he was the leading high school rusher in the United States, Luke. So we're going back to 16 years old. Now he's 30. 14 years of being famous. Not a bad word about him by anyone.
Well,
Who says anything bad about Derrick Henry? No one.
and he's got no time to do anything
Yeah, 'cause
scandalous. He's
working
too busy turning refrigerators over. All right. So let's talk about which quarterback is going to play better in this game. Now, I don't want to spoil your prediction. We said predictions would be today. I might have a bit of a surprise for everybody tomorrow. I'm just going to let y'all know in advance. Sort of a friend of a friend has a son who has his own podcast. He's 15 and he's a huge LSU guy. And I said, I think it'd be kind of cool if we did just a segment with an LSU guy who's 15 and try and get his perspective since you and I are on the backside of our lives.
Let's do it, because it's about time we had someone on the show that's more mature than the both of us.
I agree. So we might have him on for a segment tomorrow, I'm hoping, and just talk about what what the youth thinks about LSU Alabama rivalry and stuff like that. And tomorrow will be predictions.
I'm going to ask him who all the 15-year-olds voted for in the election.
Boy, there are a lot of political jokes to make right now, and we have been instructed to make none of them.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, all right. But without giving your prediction of the game, which quarterback do you have more faith in tomorrow? Garrett Nussmeier or Jalen Milroe?
Who I have more faith in? Jalen Milroe. And by the way, that's saying a lot, because I think the world of Nussmeier. I think Nussmeier's fantastic. I pegged this from the start. If you want to consider the start, that Sunday night game against USC, I'm like, oh man, Nussmeier's good. This is trouble. He is good. He's a great passer. I think he's going to have a good NFL career. So remember his dad. People say, his dad's a coach. His dad's a former NFL quarterback. This is the son of an NFL quarterback, and who's been trained his whole life to be an NFL quarterback by his NFL quarterback dad. I mean, people talk about, Bo Nix around these parts. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier is just this is the Bo Nix story, but Garrett is a talented kid. But I think Jalen is more likely to have the bigger game. He's more experienced. He's played on these bigger stages more often. He's more of a dual threat, and boy, LSU has given up some serious performances to dual threat quarterbacks. Somebody pointed out earlier today on our BOL board, it was a great post about how everybody's talking about what Marcel Reed did to LSU. Check out what Lenora Sellers did to LSU, who I've been comparing to Jalen Milroe all season long. I think he's a younger Milroe. I think Jalen Milroe is more likely to have the bigger game, and I think one of my points about this game as a whole, Luke, is this. And this is elementary. This is almost like saying, well, whoever scores the most points is going to win the game. No, I'm not doing that, but I'm sort of doing that when I say Alabama won this game if Sunday morning the talk is Jalen Milroe and not Garrett Nussmeier. And I know that's an overstatement and silly, but to me it says a lot. Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
Exactly.
I mean, Jimmy. I mean, you might as well. I mean, that is the
wheel
prediction equivalent of Lane Kiffin's injury report.
Like I said, it's not predicting whoever scores the most points wins, but I think it's a statement about LSU is going to win this game if Sunday morning everybody's saying, boy, Nussmeier guy's good. But if everybody Sunday morning is saying, why did we ever remove Jalen Milroe from the Heisman conversation, then Alabama won the game.
No, I agree with you. And I agree with you on some levels. I am nervous. I want to say Jalen Milroe is going to have the better game. I really do. I hope he does. The off week, I think, will help. Maybe the last half of Missouri helped him a lot because his confidence came back a little bit. Maybe he remembered who he was. He's Jalen Milroe. He's got fantastic scrambling ability. So use that. Don't worry about if the play is called as, hey, a design run, or don't worry if the play is like, hey, you're supposed to pass it here if he's open. If he's not open, take off, man. Right. You're a gazelle in a rhinoceros body. Don't use it.
I think both quarterbacks put up 350. Nussmeier almost all passing. Milroe passing and running. I think both are 350, and I won't be shocked if Milroe throws for 3. I think for all the talk about Milroe's legs, I think LSU secondary can be had, and Alabama's receivers are getting a bit underrated, undervalued. I think Ryan Roar's back. I think Jeremy Bernard's a good player. And while we haven't been watching, Kendrick Law is kind of turning into a bigger thing each week. Cole Adams is out. That's more reps for Law. That's more reps for Kobe Prentice, kind of a forgotten guy. Now, Kobe dropped 3 games. There's no one that wants to play better than Kobe Prentice on Saturday, and he's getting opportunity with Cole out.
You know how many touchdowns Jalen Milroe has thrown since Georgia game?
Oh, wow. What a good question. 4.
You can't be silent.
4, because I always want to get it right. 4.
I know. You got to just use that hunch, baby. Like
then I'm going to be wrong more often than normal, which is saying a lot. But 4.
No, I think your overthinking is traditionally where you underthink. So I think that I would go with your hunch. But no, 3.
Coach, 3. Missed by 1. 3. God, that's not good.
That's low, man. It's low.
Yeah, we won't tell the whole story, but a coach one time told me once in front of the whole, not just in front of my whole team, in front of the other team, a college coach told me once in a camp, Stein, quit thinking, you're hurting your ball club. Yeah, there you go.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk some recruiting. Okay, how about a little 5-hour energy talk? You know, I don't know if y'all can see me very well. I need a haircut and I need some 5-hour energy. I can tell you that. Our friends over at 5-Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, and an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan, the 5-Hour Energy Shot, with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans like us, the fans who are first in the parking lot, who are last to leave. We see y'all. We do. Look, if you get fired up when Ryan Williams makes a big play, right? But you want to keep that same energy level the whole game. 5-Hour Energy is going to help you do that. 5-Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your big game to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5-Hour Energy Shot is here to help you fuel throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with 5-Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, and of course, is always shipped nationwide. All right, Jimmy, yesterday Alabama offered a new running back, 3-star kid that's committed to a Big Ten school, and I think committed to Michigan State, right?
That's right.
Okay. And meanwhile, at the same time on Bama Online, there was a story about how Turbo Rogers, I believe, is going to Ohio State this weekend.
I think that's right for an official. I think it's an official visit.
So, I mean, coinkydink or just
no,
not a coinkydink.
No. I think some of this has been kind of obvious, to an extent. Turbo Rogers committed to the last staff. He didn't commit to this staff. He committed to the last staff. And here's another name of somebody that committed to the last staff. And that name escapes me. No, I just remembered it. Miles Johnson, from TR Miller. He committed last staff. And the new staff's like, we haven't seen enough tape. You haven't been to our camp. Turbo Rogers, did he have junior year tape? No. He went to IMG and had about 8 carries all year long. We didn't have junior year tape. He hadn't been to the camp. So the new staff did not offer Turbo Rogers. Now, were they interested? Yes, they're interested. Why? Because Nick Saban wanted him. And they're figuring, well, if Saban wanted him, this is a guy we need to have a ton of interest in. Let's watch him over the course of the season and see how it goes. He's always been a under evaluation player. So let me ask you, you stumped me earlier. I missed, do you know how many yards Turbo's rushed for in this season? And he's healthy.
I'm going to say 500.
200.
What? Now, let me tell you why that's not crazy, though. I called his game early in the year, and if y'all remember right, I think he ended up with almost negative rushing yards in that game. Now, receiving, he had a nice game. But that ain't good, Jimmy.
Receiving is part of this. Turbo plays most of his snaps now as a slot receiver and not at running back. And now I'm not saying he's a terrible prospect because Ohio State, they're not idiots. Georgia, they're not idiots. All these schools interested in Turbo, including Alabama, They're not idiots. Alabama's just looking for a second back, and they're not 100% pushing for Turbo, nor has Turbo been busting to sign with Alabama in the sense, how many times has he been? I think he's been to Tuscaloosa once or twice in the DeBoer era. He's off to Ohio State, he's off to Georgia, all these other spots, and we still have some fans acting like Turbo should be the highest priority for Alabama. That's just hasn't been the case with this new staff, though we can't rule anything out. He has not decommitted. When schools like, well, then why is he listed as a commitment? Well, that's a really simple thing to answer. He hasn't decommitted. He had a public thing to say a long time ago. I'm going to Alabama, and he's never said different. That's why he's a commitment. Now, is he going to sign with Alabama? At BOL, we've been pretty consistent on this. Maybe. That's what we've said. And it's not a cop out. That's the real answer. Maybe. We'll have to see. I don't think Turbo's taken an official visit to Alabama, and signing day's in 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the writing sure seems on the wall now. It's not going to light the world on fire that Alabama's going to lose a 4-star guy and maybe pick up a 3-star guy, or maybe pick up nobody at all at running back.
But
I think Alabama will get another running.
Should Turbo be a 4-star guy? I think.
Well, that's my next question. That's what I'm saying. I mean, so I don't think it's, again, I'm not anti-Turbo. Okay, I'm pro-Turbo. At the same time, boy, when you tell me 200 yards rushing, and here's the other thing: his team didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in a murderer's row of.
I was so looking forward to his senior season almost more than anybody. I wanted to see, man, is Turbo back and better player at IMG? He's going to be the centerpiece of a good team playing against good competition. He's rushed for, I think the exact total is 220 yards this year. And Alabama needs second back. Let's also remember this, well, that Alabama's got AK Deer. He's awesome. This is a 5-star hoss back, and he's great. Alabama's just looking for, hey, maybe we need 2. I think Turbo is fine as a second back, but like Alabama, I also agree with this. Let's see what else is out there. And this kid, Jace from Michigan State, he's an East Lansing kid, committed to the hometown college. I know he's not ranked super high, and people are going to focus on that 3 stars, but he's the number 6 or number 8. He's the number 8 ranked player in the state of Michigan. It's a big state. Detroit's full of good athletes, good players. Michigan has produced a lot of good in-state talent over the years. He's a top 10 player in Michigan. And you know who else was a top 10 player in Michigan that was ranked, I think, the 20th best back in the country? Jace is more like the 34th, but was also a top 10 player in Michigan, Mark Ingram. And Jace is similarly sized. I'm not saying he's Ingram. I'm just saying people go too far with he's just a 3-star. And I find that hard to believe at the running back position in a year where the kid that might win the Heisman Trophy is at Boise, and no one recruited him at all except Boise. So
and the other thing is, we take the stars thing. Now, I'm a recruitnik and I believe in stars 100%.
Me too.
At the same time, a 3-star doesn't mean, hey, you suck. We equate it with that, which we shouldn't. A 3-star is essentially saying, okay, this guy was going to be a contributor a little later on in his college career versus like immediate impact. 5-star, a 5-star plus or something like that is like, hey, this dude may come in and start now.
Yeah, and the 3 stars, to me, it's as simple as looking at teams like, let's name a team that has nothing but 3-star players on it. Let's just go with Troy. Troy's probably, other than transfer portal guys, I'm talking about guys they sign out of high school, they're probably all 3-star guys. Well, guess what? Every year on Troy's team, they're going to have 4, 5, 6 guys that prove to be good enough to play at Alabama. I mean, some of those guys are going to prove to be really good players. 3 stars are that way. You just got to pick the right one. Every 3-star is not the same. Some of them are going to be really good because they develop later, or they've been underrated, but some of them are just like, hey, these coaches are pretty good at this. Sometimes these coaches can look at a kid and say, he's not a thing now, but give this kid 2 years, and I think, wow. And hey, I had a coach tell me one time at Alabama about a 5-star type prospect that told me, and he nailed this. He's like, he'll be really good in like year 4, maybe even year 5. It's going to take a while, and then he's going to play in the NFL for 8 or 10 years. He might as well have written the kid's bio that day. I mean, so sometimes it just, And that kid, by the way, wasn't a 3-star. Probably should have been, but he proved to be a pro football player. Oh, mute.
That's going to do it for today's.
Luke, during that mute, Luke was telling y'all who that player was.
I was.
Now y'all will never know.
Blame it on the mute. All right. So that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more and the predictions and a special guest. So y'all join us then. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.